Noisecast.
You are slightly different from average guy because you are very avid in reviewing things, that you have a sort of you are conscious about noise in different level, that you are investigating or experiencing it.
And you're also able to write down, like
Have a words to describe things happening. So there's a perception of noise, and I think that might be something that made you sort of team up with Max, for example. That there's a certain amount of that you have a understanding for noise that goes beyond of haha.
So, I will say that kind of attitude comes from my dad, and if my dad is listening to this, thanks for making it this far. My dad as a kid for me, he made a point of, if you're going to do something, you got to do it like you mean it. Like, and of course he applied it to stuff like, you're gonna play baseball, play it like you like, do it like you mean it, Kenny.
Yep. Major league.
Yeah, exactly. But that phrase has always stuck with me. So it's like, if I'm going to listen to noise, I gotta listen like I really want to be here. I really want to do it. And I guess in that sense, like, when I put on something from someone, like, I'm listening, like, I'm very tuned in, and I guess maybe, like, the thoughts are rushing too much where I can't just keep things, like, I can't keep things to myself. I have to, like, sit down and I have to write something about it. Otherwise, it's, like, it's gonna drive me fucking insane, like, thinking about, like, especially if it's something really cool, like, I don't know, like, no one needs to hear, like, no one in theory needs to hear that at this point that, like, Emil Bolio is cool, but, like, I hear something and I'm like, I hear an Emil Bolio and I'm like, why is no one talking about this more? I need to understand this. So it's almost a need, as much as it is a need to express my feelings, it's a need to understand from the other aisle, like, why are you not talking about this more? And, like, so just again to go back to what I was taught of, like, you really want to put yourself into something if you feel like it. Like, it's not enough for me to just buy a record and listen to it once. I need to go back and listen to it. I need to think about it. I need to talk about it. And so as a result, I guess the image that's come across is that I'm utterly obsessed with noise. And I kind of doubt that sometime. Like, I think Janne from Atrophist, he said to me, like, I told him, I was like, your disc on Tribe is awesome. I love it. And he was like, it means a lot coming from someone who listens to as much noise as you. And in my head, I'm like, as much noise as me? I'm like, no, everyone listens. Like, everyone who's dedicated to noise is listening as much as I am, right? But I find that fact to not be so true. And I guess it's just I don't know, once I get into something, I got to be dedicated to it, or else it's not. Otherwise, it's just something fleeting and not worth my time.
I mean, the thing is, just as Mikko mentioned like a few minutes ago, that like few persons can like put in sentences, who can put in phrases. Like, quite many of us like listen to those tapes, but and talk to our peers like, did you hear that? yeah, that's fucking good. Yeah, that's fucking good, dude. Yeah, fucking good, man. But like, who can like put those in phrases and who can like break it down into pieces? Like, this is how it started, this is how it goes to next, and this is how it ended, and sums up as this.
Mm-hmm.
Not too many of those like individuals in the.
When you do it in a public, there's also possibility in this kind of abstract sound that is almost making fool of yourself when you are reviewing abstract sound. And when I return to my old reviews, not often, but sometimes out of necessity, I check out something what I wrote, for example, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Somebody brings up about, okay, you said about this record. And reviewing abstraction is sort of, it's easy, but it's also in a way a challenge. And it might be almost embarrassing because the level of understanding abstraction in noise and you have been one of the few guys who are publicly reviewing so much of stuff compared to all of others who have you don't have a magazine, you don't necessarily have but you're still very much vocal about noise.
But the experience is personal.
Yeah.
I think if like you're gonna talk about something, you better have something to offer to the table. Like, imagine if you read a comment, like, place yourself back in whatever age you were when you first were getting into music. If you heard like, I don't know, let's take back to your Neubauten thought. Like, if someone just told you Neubauten rocks, what does that say? That doesn't say anything at all.
Exactly.
Neubauten rocks.
Exactly.
Aerosmith can rock in the same thing. Like, that's just such a generic thing.
And that's still like 80% out of like made.
Yeah.
For net forums about like metal music or even noise music is like full of that, like these fucking roast,
Oh,
man.
fuck yeah,
You know,
fuck yeah.
dude, helvetti hyvä. Like, what does it give to, like...
It doesn't give anything.
Anything.
No, it doesn't give anything, and I'm just like...
It's nice that you like it, but still doesn't give anything.
Yeah, and so whenever I sit down and listen to something, like, honestly, if there's something I can't say even if it's positive, even if I'm like,
Yep.
this rocks, like, this is really good. If I can't think of anything beyond that, I'm just like, I'm not going to even mention it. I'm just like, because more than likely it's also something everyone knows rocks.
Yep.
But, like, part of it is, like, it has to elicit something out of me. And I guess the review, like, I don't know, I've tried writing reviews, and I do have plans for reviewing more with the next label batch. Like, I want to do something. I've always had a dream of doing it, but I guess what public discourse offers is just the chance to maybe be a little bit more barbaric in my language. Gives me a place to be a little more like, fuck yeah, this fucking rocks. But also, this is what the feeling it elicits. Like, it gives you it gives you kind of a good middle between the barbaric and the thoughtful in terms of contributing to, like, a form like Special Interest or Scream and Writhe or whatever. Whereas, like, if you're gonna publish a written publication, like, maybe there's an expectation to do a little bit more, and I don't want to do much more. I just want to be a fan, and I want to listen to a bunch of records, and I just want to post my stream of conscious thought. I just want people to hear things, and, like, I don't know, I just want to remember the fact that I listened to something. Like, I don't know, maybe one day I'll be like, I'll be like, maybe one day I'll be like Mikko's age, and I'll be like, I want to look back at my old special interests reviews and remember what I felt just to elicit that. You want to be able to document what you can, and your brain can fill in the blanks on everything else.
But I would assume that it also helps with the listening. When you think about noise tape, and if you just listen it one time, it's different than listening it 3 times, and if you write about how you felt about it, it's a different experience than listening once or listening half. Like some guy who listens like half or maybe 2 minutes, it's not the same experience as listening 3 times and then figuring out how you felt about it, writing it down, maybe telling your friend or posting it online or writing in the magazine, and it is a different experience about a release. And I think there was As Loud as Possible magazine, and the guys were telling about it, that the language of noise is so crucial about experience of noise, that when you put it in the words, it changes somehow. When, especially if you tell to friend about something, and I think it applies to live experience as well. When you tell to your friend about the live experience you had, it's addition to the experience in some way. And I think in your case, I think there's so big amount of written reviews that I think that there's something that adds to the experience of listening when you actually try to put it in the words.
I have to be honest with music and all of that. My dad is a very big influence on that, and to take it back to popular music, like, this is a man who's seen like the Clash live. He saw the Talking Heads at CBGB's. He saw these great things, and his memory of it is really nothing. It's like next to nothing. He's like, yeah, I know I was there. I didn't see it. He saw the Ramones in a fucking college gymnasium, and that's all he can really say about it. So I guess in learning maybe about what I would say is his failings, I would say, like, I want to be able, while I still can, while it's still fresh in my mind, I want to give a little bit of language to what I'm perceiving, just because I want to remember, like, even if off the top of my head I don't remember things right away, I want to be able to, like, look back on something maybe I wrote X amount of years ago and be like, oh yeah, like, this is what I thought when I was in my late 20s. Like, I don't remember all the specifics, but I remember, like, this review helps a lot. I think giving language in that regard, giving language as, like, as a way to remind yourself of, like, this is how you felt at this time, is absolutely important. And as much as I want to be able to give language to things that I think are great, it's as much about supporting my own interest in this and preserving it, and hoping one day, like, if this is all something that was of a past time, like, I can return to it and at least understand, like, what I loved about it.
You listen both new and old
Absolutely.
material, and there are some people who only listen for something that was contemporary, so meaning that old people listen old stuff, new
Sure.
guys listen for the new stuff, but you tend to listen like everything.
Big record collection.
Yeah. And I think, for example, Max, he has a possibly tendency for the 80s or tape culture or like old stuff. But in your reviews, you cover pretty much everything. Obviously, Max, he even publishes contemporary stuff, current stuff. But how do you view like what is the importance of the age or where the noise comes from?
I wanted to originally say it comes down to the person, but I don't know every person behind this stuff. I think the noise generally comes down to if it's evocative, if it evokes something out of me. I think it doesn't have to just be like sonically, but visually too. I think I definitely have my bias in terms of something might grip me a little bit more on a visual sense than other things. Like if I see naked dead woman on the cover, I might be like, get that out of the way. But if I see something maybe a little more obscure in its presentation, I'll be like, well, what is this all about? Okay, like let's look into this a little bit. I think that but I also think part of it too is just like, as much as I'm in my own lane of like listening, I'm very much viewing. I'm looking at what all of you guys are listening to and being like for example, I'll be like, oh, okay, Mikko spoke highly of this. I mean, there's a couple things in my bag over there that I'm like, okay, Mikko recommended this. Let's see if this is good. And if not, I'll, at least I tried. And yeah.
But when you mention like I'm biased to this, and in sense you give out like this is negative, but instead, I mean that's also like, but that's your taste.
It's just a personal negative.
Yeah.
I just think like,
and it's your taste. I mean, you shouldn't give like that negative perspective to it. Like I don't like this. I mean, sure, but like you can dislike this and like this more.
Yeah, I think we all have our.
Exactly.
I think to say we are completely open to things is a little.
No one is.
Yeah, no, it's a bit of a. It's not a genuine statement to make. Like, I'm sure we all have our biases of like we see something on the cover and we're like, nope, on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And I guess it's just like I just don't like to in terms of like listening to the new and the old, I just don't like to believe that I don't like to believe with anything that like X art form ended or had its heyday in something because like I don't know, we take power electronics for an example. Like White House is the progenitor of this thing, and White House is really good, and it's okay if you don't like American true crime, power electronics, whatever, that's fine. But hey, enough time has passed from White House, maybe there's something that you that you're kind of like, oh, I really get like, oh, okay, like this is studying from the old and the new and making its own thing. In a way, you were playing an initiation services thing before, so much so that I had to go up and ask you, like, what are you listening to right now? Fully thinking you were going to be like, oh, it's classic White House. And instead, nope, it's initiation services. I think more than that, it's a testament to the fact that you can learn that everyone learns from the old a little bit differently and applies their own meaning to it. I don't think what initiation services takes away from the old is any better than what Death Pile might take away from the old. It's all the same different stuff. It's just up to whether I like it or not. And if I like it, that's great. And if not, I'm gonna move on.
And even though the old remains the same,
yeah,
the new generation would pick it up through new glasses, through new lenses.
Absolutely, yeah. I think I think people are acutely aware of that. There's a great quote that I've heard that nostalgia works in 20 years. It works every 20 years, not 30 years.
20 or 30, but
yeah.
90s is coming back right now.
Yes.
Oh, it already has.
And, to take it back to real music for a second, obviously the 80s saw something in the Beach Boys that the 70s did not. Mm-hmm. So that nostalgia or that appreciation of the old sound comes into wave every couple of decades, and people will do better things with it. Or not better things, but they'll do their
new
own
things with
they'll
it.
Do new things with it. Yeah,
yep.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
The guy, I think you saw the guy who was with a wooden box when you arrived here.
Yes.
And we were talking about Death Pile.
Mm-hmm.
And Death Pile could be quite an unusual thing to talk about in a record shop.
If I can add in the personal anecdote there, I live in Philadelphia right now.
Yeah.
Death Pile is the reason I moved to Philadelphia.
Yeah.
I went to a record store in Philadelphia, and Death Pile's Triumph of Death was for sale. And I bought the tape. I still have it. And I still have the little Post-it note the record store put over it. You probably know the tape, the self-abuse tape, where there's the mangled face on the front. He put a little smiley face Post-it note that says yuck on it. Yeah. I still have that Post-it note on the tape to this day. But I saw that in a store and I was like, well, I have to move here. Yeah. Obviously. Not knowing that David E. Williams is in Philadelphia and all of that. But
I was just recent days listening to White Centipede Noise top 5 new stuff. And you were not included, but
what a tragedy!
But when looking back, there's a bunch of things that already during these years you can see that they're sort of becoming classics, and there's some other stuff but it's already sort of forgotten, and. When you are experiencing noise or listening noise, do you see this kind of a timelessness of something? That when I think about Finland, there's we have currently happening maybe I would say 100 releases a year, something like that.
More than?
Even more. There might be even more. And there's a fragment of releases that are timeless releases.
Yeah.
And there are people still talking about either live show or release that happened maybe 5 years ago, but it's some of kind of it made an imprint in the mind of people, and in the consciousness of people. It is this is what noise is about, and there's a certain amount of noisemakers who are able to have a timeless approach. You can also be a guy who were great last week, but there are a certain amount of guys who made a timeless impression. And when listening this White Centipede episode, I think it was clear to see that there's some guys who were recommending releases by their friends, and some obvious things, but then there was some people who knew about that this means something, that this is actually meaningful noise release, and it's not ending into 2017, but we will talk about it
Sure.
5 years later. Maybe the question would be, what would be sort of a personal, very subjective idea, what would be meaningful releases of post-COVID, so like about 5 years,
Yeah.
Sure.
what made a difference in the expression?
Whew. What made an impression? Yeah, sure. I think again it's got to be back to that point. We got to start with what are the releases that are not just the fists raising fuck yeah type of things. What are the things that at least make us come back with a question after the release? What is kind of like the what is the stuff that has a little bit of a deeper layer to it underneath? That's a good starting point. Anything really that necessitates a couple listens is always a good thing. Of like, when I listen to something, if I want to listen to it again, it's normally because it's not because I'm like, and this is something I really hate, where people are like, I didn't get it the first time, maybe I'll get it the second time. I don't really like that. I like a repeat listen in. I like this. My impression is that I like this, but there's something within that I want to explore further, or to maybe like there's an element that I want to dial it back and kind of get to that build up that made me have that initial reaction of like, holy shit, this is great. I think that's important in these Hallmark releases. I'm not looking for things that are exactly genre pushing or anything like that. I think to put noise in a genre is not exactly a healthy thing, because with genres, the question is more often than not, how are we pushing X genre? You see it in discourse with more popular genres, like let's say hip hop or country, for example. They ask the questions of like, what are we doing to push the genre forward? I'm not looking for something to push noise forward. I'm looking for something that will make me ask a question or think a little bit deeper about what you made when presenting something. And it doesn't even matter if it's like an edition of 300 or edition of 3. It's like, if you made me think deeper about what you do, or made me think enough to the point where I have to re-listen to maybe get a better context of why I enjoyed what you do, like that to me is what makes good Hallmark releases beyond the COVID era. It's really nothing. I don't think it's anything that's like unique to this era.
I can refer to White Centipede Noise because it's one of the popular Noisecast.
Sure.
But there was a Size Effects interview.
Sure.
Where he had this point about cultural effects of noise that are not really noise, but they are like there's a layer of culture with noise. He made a point that there was certain like I would say industrial culture perspective to noise. I have a feeling that the Dead Door unit, it's not necessary transgressive noise. In a Dead Door unit, I think there's still content that is noise, but sort of kind of beyond noise. I don't know if, but the sound is expressing something that is not sound.
I think a lot of what I'm getting across, or trying to rather, is I think what I want to get across is just this kind of almost a wanderlust for something beyond just the norm of life. I mean, I grew up in a very small town, and I always thought of what was beyond the confines of where I grew up. Hence why I would sneak away to go to the record store or something like that. Or like a lot of stuff that I talk about, or a lot of sounds that I'm very interested by, are the sound of anything involving the train tracks, because to me, I would fall asleep to the sound of the train passing by. And the trains really represented something like, there's a world beyond just where I live in New Jersey, in this small town, and it's not even just like getting on a train and going somewhere else. It's like, what if we physically got on the train tracks and walked this? We see like dead animals, we see other people who we don't know, we see their backyards or their life, or like we see discarded beer bottles, we see life passing in front of us, things that we have not lived before, and the only way we can live them is through imagining what that is. And so for as much as I am getting across just like good noise, it's more of just like, please come with me and listen to a thought or an imagination I have about these private subjects, and I like to keep them private a little more, just because as much as to put things forward, I think it's more powerful to give maybe a piece of the information and let imagination fill things. Like if I had known that, like to follow back to what I said, if I had known that the reason there were a bunch of beer bottles behind like a creek on the train tracks growing up was just because it was some fucking drunk dumbass teenager just getting drunk and smashing his beer bottles everywhere, I don't think I'd be as interested. I think making up a story to go along with it is maybe a little more powerful to me.
Because I have also like lived my whole life next to train tracks, like since birth.
Sure.
Train was like a thing of like 20th century, and for that era it was like the peak of like geniuses. But the 20th century, like you and I, it also gives you like glimpse of like backyard of what is not so good anymore. And those sides, you, at least in my perspective, I have done it in Europe, also in US, Canada, and also in lots of countries in Asia. Like what you see from like train tracks, what you see from the train, it's usually not that pretty. You usually get like the hard reality of what is like life for those who ain't doing that bad.
I mean, obviously I took a train up here to come to and you guys can laugh or whatever about what I'm about to say.
No.
But I looked at the houses coming up here, and you're talking about like it's a little bit dark, or like it's kind of like the reality of what maybe a little more disparate part of the country is like. I look at these houses and I look at these like lakes or whatever we're passing by, and I was like, I would give anything to spend a day here in Lahti, just to live life, to see what someone who owns a house here is like. To me, something like a train is not just a byproduct of the 20th century. It's more of like, it offers hope. It offers a perspective on another life that I'm not able to live or able to look at. And so for as much as like my own reality is projected in my work, I'm also drawing a lot on like fantasy or like filling in the blanks of these works, kind of coming up with things as they go along. A good example of that directly correlating to my work is I did a tape a few years ago on Un Poco Fria called The Beasts Never Change, and one of the tracks is called Anything to Fry Your Brain. And to pull back the curtain a bit, it's actually a quote that I had heard at work one night where the owner of the bar that I work at said, anything to fry her brain. But the way he said it was, anything to fry your brain. And I was like, what is a fryer brain? And I was like, anything to fry your brain? Like, okay, fryer brain. You know, my imagination starts racing. Like, fryer brain, a location, and maybe it's a city or like something like that. Like, how do we get to fryer brain? Something like stuff like that just kind of gets my mind racing. I tend to enjoy filling in my own blanks about stuff, and with noise especially, I like to imagine, like, I guess I like seeing the artwork, or maybe like the titles of something that guys like you would do, because just to draw from an example of just to draw to an obvious example, I look at a work of like Mikko's with Karik, and I'm like, to me it sounds like you are stepping in a forest full of glass based on the visuals and then the sound presented. I like to imagine a forest full of glass as I step through the listening of that record. I like to leave a lot of it up to the imagination, and I hope in my work, like, you know, I hope no one ever figures out like what I'm specifically referring to unless I directly tell them what I'm referring to. I'd like people to figure out in their own way.
So what is like the universe according to the door unit? How do you see like the world outside of you?
Hopeful.
Hopeful?
Absolutely, yeah. No,
because you mix harsh and also like experimental noise in good taste, at least to me.
I don't want to be like Welcome to Dead Door World or something like that, where everything is like crazy and fucked up or something like that. No,
but it probably implements to our regular word or not?
Maybe. Like, I think that certain sounds are universal. And I was actually thinking about that the other day. Certain sounds are universal. Because I was out recording the sounds of Finnish construction. Mm-hmm. And I was like, no one gives a shit if this construction is going on in Helsinki or in fucking Red Bank, New Jersey. No one gives a shit. It all sounds the same. I think rather what I'd like to give the world, in my opinion, is it's one that has a lot of difficulties, but deep down, I just kind of believe in positivity and hopefulness. I don't subscribe to a lot of nihilism on a personal level. I think we're pretty capable of changing things on a personal level, I should say.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm speaking to a personal setting.
Of course.
In a personal place at a personal time.
Yep.
More often than not, even if I don't say it directly, a lot of it just comes from the moment in time.
Of course.
Because, like, even coming here to Finland, I've had people message me and be like, what is Finland like? And the only way I'm able to describe it is from personal experience.
Of course, yeah.
It's so much different than that, but I can only speak from personal experience. Like, the only way to do it is to tap into my own personal experience, which is personally experienced by others.
Because we are lot more than the like happiest country in the world. Same way as US is much more. Same way as any other country is more like the first idea you get out of it.
I want to lay a terrain that is like, you can step inside this, and whatever you build from that point is your own. It's your thing.
Oh, absolutely.
I gave you the canvas.
Yep.
And maybe added a couple colors. You can fill in the rest.
Yep.
One of the beauties of noise, we're usually given templates of how we should relate to world or society or something. And noise is sort of breaking all the templates about how it should be approached.
Sure.
And it's a curious thing that within noise scene, there's usually the most open-minded, like people who are supposedly opposed sides, but they find them like each other and it's different from any other music scene that I know of.
Same way as we're having this conversation.
Yeah.
We have like three persons here, but in the same perspective, we have three artists here who all work here is different.
Mm-hmm.
In some way we are also against each other, in some way we are like proceed and like together with each other. We're still able to have this conversation, which is fine.
Well, because
which is great. In many of the genres this wouldn't be happening.
Well, I think the thing about it is with noise, I think there's a lot of militancy in noise, and I think a lot of that comes on the US side because
not necessarily.
Well, maybe you guys can speak better on the European side than
Perhaps.
I could. But I guess my interpretation from the US side is that a lot of people are coming in from a subculture that is tangentially related, whether it is hardcore, punk, or metal, grindcore, whatever you have to. I mean, that's where I came in from. I came in from grindcore with Pig Destroyer and Man is the Bastard, more power violence tinge. And within scenes like that, you have a lot of militancy about, like, this is how you act, this is who you oppose, this is what you do. But the reality is that as the pool grows smaller, you have to realize that everyone is coming from a different walk of life. And it's, I guess it's easier with power violence and grindcore to be like, fuck this band, I'm going to find another band, because there's a bunch of bands that use the same four chords and the same like kind of vocals and it's easier. But with noise, it's like everyone's bringing their own thing to the table and their own sound and their own interpretation of how sound is to be made, that it's like you're almost asked to face the question of like, why are they making things, or why are they presenting the things that they should or that they are presenting? Because it's like you don't have a lot to grab towards. I mean, thinking on grindcore, if you're not like an anal cunt fan, that's fine. because you can go on and you can go listen to Brutal Truth because you have other grindcore options. But with noise, you know, people have this limited option where it's like, I don't want to listen to Prurient. How much sounds like Prurient in noise? Not a lot.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, you kind of got to, I think because it's already such a transgressive art form, it has a lot of transgressive attitude in it, and you got to kind of face it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You always ask about top 5 artists or recordings or something, but I think this, for example, important artists, and you mentioned Prurient Hospital, and I think if you would have to mention most important noise artist of, let's say, 15 years, and my idea.
Hey, this dude is 30 years old, so
Yeah, okay, but
all of his life,
Yeah.
of his life. So we don't give him 15.
But I will have to. I can mention a few things that there's. If somebody would ask me, there would be Prurient would be the one guy who defined certain atmosphere or vocabulary or like language of noise, and he's one guy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the Rita, undisputed harsh noise wall guy who changed the language of noise completely. And then Bizarre Uproar would be
Another.
like top 3, and there's like White House, okay, Tensonic, okay. These all are legends. Tropic Crystal, okay, but if we are talking about contemporary noise, there's a like top 3 of who defined what is contemporary noise, and I think it's the Rita, Prurient, Bizarre Uproar.
Sure. Mine, I have to say, it would be disingenuous to say, for me in the top 3 sort of, for me, you have to throw in John Olson, just because, and I know Wolf Eyes has mutated so much from 20 years ago, but I think with John, he really laid the groundwork for almost like an American style of noise that's okay with mistakes happening in recordings, or like the environment being as much a part of the recording as the actual noise itself. And also just the what's the word? The depth of the releases coming out, just like putting out these like, here's an edition of 7. If you weren't there, you missed it. Too bad. On to the next thing. I feel like he's super influential in that regard, and he's definitely influential in the French market press stuff that I do. In another sense, to continue with that 3, maybe to get a little more modern right now, because I'm like, because I'm a little more thinking in the modern right now. Robert Fuchs would be another one.
Cool.
I think that Dean really pushed an obscurity that makes you question, like, who the fuck is this guy who, like, putting out these things in a small edition, because the touch back and like what John did, like the edition of 7 at the point that I got into that stuff, like everyone knew who John was, but what Dean and Robert Fuchs put forward, it's like, wait, who the fuck is this new guy? Like, with how much proliferation there is right now in noise, he put forward an idea of the obscurity in the power of putting out small editions. I really want to cheat. Is it okay if I cheat and say 4 people?
Of course.
Because I gotta give credit to the modern prankster Max, who I think Max and I are a lot on the same wavelength, where we're like, let's fuck with people a bunch. Let's come up with little random releases, and like let's come up with names that people will never be able to trace down together. Max is certainly putting the weird forward into everyone's ears. I think Max's influence can't be understated, and despite the fact we live together, I don't say it enough to him in person, is that I love what Max does and everything Tribe does.
I mean, I was talking about with Max this last week in New York. I don't remember, was it Wednesday or Friday, it doesn't matter, but I mean, like, who the fuck in their 20s is like more interested about like stuff that happens like 2 decades before their birth than Max? Like, most of the guys in their 20s is like pushing their own, I have this band, you wanna heard about it, like who gives a fuck? Max is like historian, and that is like something that breaks out of the ordinary.
Max says things, he's like, you should check this out, and I'm like, okay, I will. But he doesn't realize that there's 50 other things he recommended to me to try out that I'm like, I have to still get around to that.
Yep.
But the last thing, sound-wise, that truly blew my mind, and I guess it goes back to the finish of it all, is her. Like, to me, in the last 20 years, like, I haven't heard stuff like that. Like, that kind of thing really throws me for a loop where I'm like, this sounds like it's been around since the cavemen. And I'm like, what is he doing? What the fuck is this? Like, I don't know what's happening right now. So I guess that's kind of like the 3/4 people I'd have to give credit to.
With John Olson, he declared that noise is over. And I think it was sort of controversial.
Sure.
But I think there was a point about people were upset about noise is over.
Sure.
When they felt like, okay, noise is going on. But
might be over for you guys.
Yeah. But I think there was a point about when he sort of explained why it is over. And the era of limited to 7 copies of tape was sort of over at that point.
Sure.
And very few people have heard about me doing collaboration with John Olson.
Yeah.
And there's a tape, but it was limited to 16 copies. So there was a tape that came out screwed in like a piece of wood with some sort of substance. It was almost like a concrete or some sort of I don't know what it was. It was on top of a piece of wood where the tape was screwed through the holes of tape. And when they arrived to Imatra city in Finland in the middle...
City or town?
In 96. And the customs were like, we need to investigate this thing because we don't know what is this substance in this piece of wood.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're not breaking my noise tape. and then we were talking about it. Are you taking samples of my noise tape to laboratory that what is this substance in the piece of wood? But eventually they gave me the tapes.
I just want to admit that I think about that tape more than you might be comfortable knowing about. I still am. In terms of noise making and influence, I absolutely don't have any idea of like when I make like I could have never thought in a million years, and I have to go back to something earlier that I mentioned about this group, New Jersey Musical Annihilation. New Jersey Musical Annihilation. I could have never thought in a million years that I would influence a group of kids to go out and make cassettes that are packaged in like the leftovers of their Taco Bell order or something like that. Like I could have never imagined that. Like
But
I
you
was,
did that.
it did happen.
Yep.
Yeah, no, it absolutely happened, and I'm just like, it's something that I kind of wrestle with by myself, because I don't know, like I'm a regular guy. Like when I leave this interview, I'm gonna sleep in a bed like yours. I'm gonna go back to a job. I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z. I mean, maybe not like yours. You have a very very rare situation where you're your own boss. But I'm gonna sleep in a bed, not much different from yours. I'm gonna go to a job. I'm gonna earn a certain things. To me, it's almost like it's so much different from what I imagined as a teenager, where I could be like, maybe I'll be a professional musician one day. I'm not that, but but the fact that I've still influenced anyone blows my mind to a degree, because all I did was a reaction to the environment around me, where it's like you're sitting and waiting for a train and these bird spikes fall on the ground and you're like, all right, I'm going to wrap tape around bird spikes and I'm going to paint the bird spikes.
And it doesn't make it any less important. Like,
I guess
you
not.
don't have to be like fucked up with electric guitar to be a star. Like
I don't, I guess. Like, I just don't want to believe, like, again, it comes back to the fact that the basements of New Jersey, where you're just like, anyone could do this. Anyone could stand in front of these mics and say anything or perform anything, and they'll get just as much coverage as I will. And sometimes just the fact that I've gotten more... I mean, the fact that I'm sitting in front of you two right now in Finland discussing this is something that I can't even... I don't know when I'll be able to comprehend that I did this.
You earlier said that you lived in a small city. What was the small city?
I grew up in a town called Shrewsbury, New Jersey.
Population of
who, I don't know. But maybe like 1 square mile of a town. It was kind of like... I talked to a lot of people in America where it's like they talk about having like... Okay, just for the American people who are listening, you probably know there's like schools that go through like kindergarten to 5th grade, and then they go to a middle school or an elementary school, upper school, whatever you guys want to call it. My school was through kindergarten up until the grade right before high school. Okay. It was that small of a town. You could
public school?
Yes, a public school.
Yep.
You could walk the length of the entire town in an hour if you wanted to. And for me, like, everything, if I was more complacent with things, everything would have started and ended there. I was born there. My friends, I grew up with people on the same street as me, and I became lifelong friends with them. And I could have stopped there and just whatever. But going beyond that, I think growing up in that small of a town And the town that size is something that inspired me. Like, let's see what's beyond this, because it's a really small town in hindsight, Shrewsbury, and most people, I don't know what it's like in Finland, but in America, they call it a town you raise your children. They say Shrewsbury is a town you raise your children in, which means you're in your 30s, you and your wife have got married. You're going to have a child there. Your child's going to go through the school system. This is a town you raise your children in. And that's what it was like. I was in a town where the point of it is to get in a good school system and learn from there. It's not a place where an artist thrives. And when I was starting to make stuff, it was generally met with this guy is very weird. And the music he is making, mind you, it wasn't noise yet. It was more in the realm of punk rock or noise rock kind of thing. The reaction was, Ken is a weird guy, and he makes weird music. But mind you, all I was doing was playing guitar in a punk band at the time.
I was told by a guy from America that there's a lot of cities where if you have a black shirt, you are already
weird.
Oh,
absolutely. Yeah. I remember a crucial argument that I had with, and these are friends that I still have to this day, where they say, you don't want to be the guy who owns band shirts. Don't be the guy who's in his 20s owning band shirts. I am the guy in his 20s who's owned band shirts. I mean, well, band and this is the shirt I'm wearing right now is for a local diner, which is another thing.
Steal.
Yeah, no one should collect shirts for diners.
Yep.
But this
I
is
became that guy. Yeah.
But there's a difference when we're asking like what size is the city, because in Finland, the noise scene is the level of something, or not necessarily noise scene, but the underground scene is something that there's almost no, let's say, if you are living in a city which is not a village, but it's actually city, or even if you are village, you are living in a village which is more than a couple of houses.
2,000 people, yeah.
So then you might have an underground scene.
Yeah.
Sure.
And
So in Finland, there's like in the USA, you look at like a major cities, like millions of people, and you have something happening.
Oh no, I grew up in a couple.
What we forget in Finland is concept of town. We talk about cities, but when you talk about cities, it's like 15 million people or 10 million.
But most
when we talk about cities, we only have truly like one city, that's Helsinki, and
when I grew up,
just towns.
Okay, so like for me, I guess like the perception, and this might be because I'm a Northeast person. A city to me is New York or Philadelphia.
Exactly. Those are cities.
Helsinki, I guess, is a city, but it's a city in the way that Portland, Oregon, is a city.
Might be.
I grew up. I grew up in a town, like maybe a couple thousand people, like a very small thing. So like, it is not a lot of things. A live show, forget about it. You're going to a professional venue.
Yeah.
I didn't know what a basement show was until I was like 18. 18 at least. So, like, the town I grew up in, like, it lent... Because it was so drab and kind of boring in a sense, like, you kind of had to imagine stuff. Like listening to Alice in Chains' Dirt or something like that. You had to imagine, what does a junkie look like, for example? Like or to get more closer to the extreme music, like what would drive someone to write Pig Destroyer, Prowler in the Yard, as an example, because that's a very formative record for me. What would drive someone to write records like that? you don't really have that idea unless you're from a small town, because all you know is your town, and you kind of have to guess from that point. And not to say that small towns don't have their benefits. I think the imagination itself is very beneficial. I'm just saying, like, I acknowledge the fact that I did not grow up in like a major metropolitan area by any means, and I didn't have the access to larger culture was very hard to come across. And getting to this point that I'm at, where I can write people regularly, that took a lot of years to get towards. So I think I was explaining this to Janne from Atrophist yesterday, that like, because he was asking, how do multiple cities in Ohio have multiple shows happening all at once? And I had to explain to him, well, in America, you drive to the different cities, and like, you're not regular. There's no really good subway system or train system to get to the cities.
Yep.
So in Ohio, a show in Dayton will not attract people from Cleveland all the time, and then Cleveland shows will have a different crowd
than in Columbus.
Exactly. So for me, for that kind of thing, you kind of have these different crowds that sprout up and have their own. Yeah.
Because that's, even though like we have a fairly small country when it comes to the population, like if you check out like what the size of the country is, it's fairly big compared to the population. Like, I mean, and Helsinki ain't the epicenter of Finnish noise scene.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you get like 3 or 4 towns that comes before Helsinki. At least,
So,
yeah, I think this is my personal.
It's funny, in New Jersey we have. I will always.
Same way as Washington DC or
Yes.
New York ain't like epicenter of U.S. noise scene.
It's funny, in New Brunswick,
Yep.
a year ago or so, and I think I wrote about it on Special Interest, there were kids from the college at Rutgers that came to a show, and they're like, we want to see the New Brunswick noise. And I laughed at that, because the New Brunswick noise, it's just... It's noise to me.
It used to be you.
Yeah, it's just noise. It's just noise. It's just like a larger thing. And but these kids, they see like the local thing, and that's all they react to. They don't think about like noise in the larger sense. They don't realize noise is a larger global thing. Same thing, like my sister, she lives near New York, so she went out to New York one night, and she was like, I'm shocked to learn that people beyond Kenny make noise. I thought noise was something he makes. And it's like, I think it's so funny. Because it's like, like, you know, for as much as this has a global thing, there is still so much of a local mindset. Whereas, like, when people say, like, the New Brunswick noise, they think of, like, noise that people from New Brunswick make. They're never going to think about anything that you guys make over here in Finland.
I mean, that seems like you live with Max, so you have like each other. But like, how much do you have like these artists who live like purely on their solo, who live like by themselves, who don't have like their next friend or friends next to that who is like into noise, who are like purely on their self.
I gotta say,
like this microscopic like biospheres of like noise.
I gotta say I'm lucky in that sense, because I don't know many people who are like, oh, I live by myself, and the closest noise person is like the next town over, or like several towns over. But even still, like with Max, I kind of think that Max's interpretation of noise where he grew up is different from where I grew up. Where I mean, we've never sat down and talked about it all that much, of like, how did your environment influence where you grew up in, or like where you grew into noise? Like, because North Carolina is so much different from New Jersey. I'm just like, I realize now that I've never sat down with Max and really talked about that all that much. It's very funny, like, we talk about noise and we talk about recording, but I don't think we've ever talked about, like, what do you think of, like, what is it you're saying about America? And I guess with me and the American culture, I think, and this is my interpretation, Max can say something different, or we can have an argument about this whenever he hears this. I find that Tribe is very sensationalist and very in tune with, like, what gets the people going. Like, what is it that really excites people in a way in America that I don't think that Door Unit does as much as I like more of the forgotten parts of America, the people who are left behind, the people who wish they could be stars, or the people who wish they could have something beyond their little world that they exist in. And that's kind of like what I'm kind of trying to talk about. Like, for as much as I talk about, like, the cult and the true artists who are making, like, true authentic art, like, there is a part of me that wishes I laugh at the thought of it, but there's a part of me that wishes, like, that I was some damsel in distress pop diva like Britney Spears, or some sort of person who, like, you know, we don't know about these personal lives. Our imagination is filling it in so much, where, like, I hear a song, like, every time by Britney Spears, and I'm like, I wish I knew the suffering that she was going through, because, like, it sounds very romantic.
May I continue?
Yeah, go ahead.
Every time by Britney is like, mwah,
Yeah.
top 5 of American songs ever. But hey, when it comes to Max, we were talking about this with Max about a week ago, and with several of my Finnish friends about, like, 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. I don't give a fuck. But like first time he came here, his performance was like 4 minutes or 6 minutes. It doesn't give a fuck, but, like, very short. And it was in Helsinki. He was just shouting into the mic, like, fucking up with the mixers, and everyone was like, what the fuck is this? Then he came to Turku, did the same thing. Probably in between those he went to Tampere, and everyone in Tampere was like, he did, like, the greatest harsh noise show ever, like, and I didn't see that. I was like fucking, like, jealous of those guys who went to see the Tampere show.
Sure.
And like, what the fuck? And now finally, like, a week ago, I went in New York City to see the show, but, like, that was the thing that I was like guarding Max for that. Like, you understand? Like, there was, like, whole evening full of, like, top-notch Finnish shows, top-notch Swedish shows, fucking Genocide Organ playing the same evening, and then Max was playing like fourth or third of the evening. But he gave us something that we don't usually have. He was spitting on top of the fucking audience. He was giving us, like, something to laugh. It wasn't like something that you have to, like, watch and feel with this, like, serious face.
No, because I think...
Because that's something that, like, we don't have in Finnish scene. Oh, Mikko, you might correct me, but like we don't have that in same way as those guys have in the US. I mean, I understand that Max can do it.
Yeah, well, I think it's perspective of outsider. If I would come to US, everybody would say we don't have that in US. But it's same when somebody comes from US here. There's an outsider perspective.
Yeah. I think a lot of what it comes from is, like, to go way the fuck back into earlier in the conversation, I think it comes from the basement environment we grew up in of, oh, you don't give a fuck about us, we don't give a fuck about you.
Yep.
Where it's like, we are very antagonistic.
And why would give the audience the same thing as the previous guy?
No, absolutely not.
And the next guy gives. So, like, why would not challenge a little bit?
No, I want to challenge, and that's the thing, is I want to challenge the audience in terms of what might be given towards them as a performance. Like, who knows, in terms of these upcoming shows, there could be a full, like, tape A to tape B type performance. If I feel like it might just be the microphone and like that kind of thing the entire time. Like, I think in America we have a bit of like because again, artists are treated like shit and they're given such a shit thing that our performance is like, you don't care about us, we don't care about you, and this is the set we are going to give you, and you're going to either like it or hate us for the fact that we took up your time to give it. And I just think that more than anything, like, I guess as I, I'm not exactly old in age, but as I start to age a little bit more, there's a little bit more of a power to realizing that as an artist, I can give as much energy forward as I think the moment calls for. I want to give, ideally with these shows, I want to give you guys like a 15 to 20 minute performance, but really, if the moment calls for 5 minutes,
fuck you're going to give us 25.
No, I'm not going to give you 25. That's way
you're
too
going to give us 25.
No.
Fuck you up.
I think.
You piece of shit.
No. I think that.
You ain't that troll, I can kick you in the head.
No, I think it's great that you can give this time so much as like you understand that like that's all you needed to see. Like, I think people are very like, their expectation is like, you got to give X amount of time towards your performance.
And the audience can feel it if you're like prolong it too much. You know yourself, it like, this is going to fly.
Yeah. I've given those 3 minute sets.
Absolutely.
I gave a 3 minute set before where I was like, it's not gonna get better than this, and then you unplug the mixer and you're like, people are like, Unc, why did you give all the young kids are like, Unc, why did you give a 3 minute performance? And you're like, because it felt that way. It felt natural. Like,
in Europe, generally, there's like an industrial culture has made most of the bands are playing half an hour, 45 minutes. And American noise is different. That there's this idea that you can play 3 minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, but in general in Europe, it's usually like half an hour. It's like a real band playing a live set. But noise is different because it's not really a band playing, so it's a different. And what was last time you saw some band play 45 minutes?
Most of the shows that I see, if I'm going to see a show where a band plays 45 minutes or longer, it would probably be, let's call it a professional band. Like, but even then, like, my biggest influence in everything is the Melvins, where the Melvins, like Buzz Osborne says in an interview before, where he's like, the most you should give the audience is 75 minutes. They want you to want more. And I guess in Noise, I've kind of thought the same thing. Like, the crowd is going to want more out of this. Let me leave them wanting more. And it's kind of adopted me into, like, the best a band will give is within their first 20 to 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And I think, like, I guess with getting better at Noise, it's kind of gotten me to realize that, like, I have a good barometer for being like, all right, this is going to be the best point in the set. After that, I'm going to turn the mixer off, and that is going to be the set. And I don't care if it was 3 minutes in, like, people are they're going to enjoy it. With this kind of string of shows, I guess I've learned to embrace the build-up a little bit more, where it's like, okay, I'll build up the set a little bit more to get to this point, but when that point has come, I'm going to cut it off. And I want to cut it off because I want people wanting more. Noisecast.